You're wearing a sweater that was selected for you by the people in this room from a pile of stuff.
Give me a full ballerina skirt and a hint of saloon, and I'm on board.
I have a hole in my stomach! I can't go back.
I think we got a little bit of echo in there. I don't know if you guys heard that, but I certainly could hear it on my end. Welcome to She Became Visible. I'm René Steelman, your host today. And you might feel a little deja vu because today is part 2 of the broadcast that we had last week with our guest, Jacki Riedeman, and my co-host, Lila Tuller. And we just barely got started. We went over an hour and we still had just barely gotten into Jacki's life story. So we wanted to bring her back and have her share more of her story. What I think I love the most about Jacki's story is many of us who have deconstructed our religion, we look back and we think, okay, we know we had cognitive dissonance. We know that there were things that just kind of, in our gut, but we didn't act on it. Why didn't we act on it? Why were we so enthralled with this whole deal and just enmeshed in everything and just woven into our whole DNA that even though we felt it and we knew it, we couldn't act on it? And listening to Jacki's story really made me realize that it goes beyond just logic. It goes into our psychic. And I love how she explains all of that. So I'm going to bring Lila and Jacki back on so I don't waste any more time so that we can definitely get into Jacki's story today. So, and it is March. It is the end of March and March 26th, in case any of you are wondering what day it is today, because as a retired person, I have to check almost every day to remind myself what day it is. So boo-hoo, right? Okay. All right. Let's bring hello. There's Lila and Jacki. And let me get rid of that weirdo image behind it that messes everything up. All right. There we go. All right. Welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for spending another Sunday morning with me. I appreciate you taking your time out of your day. I don't know what you guys have planned for the rest of the day. Lila, you have snow where you're at?
Tons of snow. We have so much snow. It's like record. It's record snowfall this year. Like Alta has 798 inches or something like that, which is, they just broke the record from 1981, 82. So it's a lot of snow.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw people were posting on TikTok, oh, hello, spring. We're so glad it's spring now with the snow coming down and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
on Sunday, the first day of spring, there was a huge storm. It was depressing.
Oh my gosh. And Jacki, what have you got going on? Are your rain days over?
No, we have atmospheric river, who knows what, coming in Wednesday. So we have rain and more rain and more rain coming again. So like there's snow, we have the most water ever, beating all records. And the mountains have so much snow they can't ski because Mammoth and everything, the lifts are just, you can't ride the lifts because the lifts have snow up above the lifts. So it's crazy. It's just crazy.
Yeah. And I don't know how many of you, if you've had a chance to check out the news this morning, but I guess horrible tornadoes in Mississippi and just the damage is unbelievable. So it is definitely, and I don't know, I always go back to, is it really that different, or are we just more socially aware of it because of our media and our 24-hour news cycle? But it's definitely scary and definitely opens our eyes to what's going on in the rest of the world and makes us grateful for whatever it is. Even if we're getting a little rain and snow, we have a roof over our head and it's not lying flat, right? Like they're having after this horrible tornado.
It does definitely feel like 82 when I was counseling up above in the Girl Scout camp above Park City, and it snowed on the 4th of July.
Right.
So it does definitely feel like that summer.
Okay. So that's a good reference point. It's like we think this is like I mean, people will say, "Oh, it's the end of the world." Look at it. Well, you need to go back in history, and it was So that's good. That's a good reference. So, Jacki, I'm just going to remind our audience. I don't know how many of you, if any of you did not watch episode 33 with Jacki, then go back and watch that. But Jacki was born and raised in West Valley City, Utah, as she describes the western part of the Salt Lake Valley, which those of us that are not from Utah, that's just, I don't know where that is, but I do know that driving around and listening to so many podcasts, you know, people will refer to different parts of Utah, either by their county or some kind of an, Cache Valley or some reference to a mountain range or something. I don't know. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking, Davis County. I don't know what you're talking about, but she explained that it was very Mormon and that she grew up in a convert family, but she was kind of the driving force behind their activity. And she was kind of the leader in that home in making sure that everybody was where they were supposed to be and did what they were supposed to be doing, and was determined to, would you say you were kind of a perfectionist?
I've always been, I've always been a perfectionist.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like you don't tell perfectionists things because they will take it to a whole new level. And, and the fact that you were the driving force to getting your parents in the temple, you don't hear that story.
That was a good driving force, though.
Exactly.
It was out of sheer panic. They were like, "Oh no!" Yeah, fix it.
And can't you see that? I remember we had a stake president when we lived back in Oregon, and he said that his parents, he was one of the dynasty families in this little city, right? There's always that family in whatever little city that you are, and he was the dynasty king in that family, and he talked about how his parents were not active because they were not married in the temple, and they got tired of going to church and being told that they weren't quite up to par. Mm-hmm. And so they kind of quit going. He on the other hand, took it and ran with it and became the stake president and the whole bit. But it's so hard when, as a child, I can't even imagine sitting in primary, their young women's or young men's, and listening to parents need to be sealed for time and all eternity and born in the covenant. And where did you serve your mission? And all the other mm-hmm. rhetoric that you get. And then as a child going, okay, I gotta make our family better so we can be together. And then, we gotta get this act together, and taking on that responsibility that you must have felt. And how old were you again? Remind us how old you were.
Well, my family didn't go through the temple until I was 19.
Oh gosh.
So yeah. But you can either take it that way, or you can get really rebellious about it and say, hey, my family's okay. But yeah. So one of the two ways, or you can feel very, very left out. So, which is one thing that happens too when families like that. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah. So anyway, kind of fast forward, she served a mission, mm-hmm. but she actually fell in love, got married, had children, and had them blessed in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, even though she was kind of rejected in her own ward. And I think that is such a great example of how it's not even a conscious move. Mm-hmm. What would you say, Jacki?
It's just what you do. Yeah. It's ingrained. It's brainwashed. What can I say? Yeah. I mean, seriously, that's what you do. It's, how do you not give that child a blessing and a name? Because what if something should happen? Then, it's what you do. It's exactly what you do.
Yeah. You just keep going. You just mm-hmm. keep walking. It's amazing. So Lila, you had some really great questions that we didn't have a chance to ask Jacki in her growing up time, in her same-sex attraction, acknowledgement and coming out. And there was just so many things that we weren't able to touch on because of our time restriction. But I'm like, you know what? If we need to do a John DeLynn today, we are going to do a John DeLynn. So grab your nourishment. I've got about 3 beverages here just in case this is an 8-hour production. Right.
That's funny.
Yeah. So Lila, you had some really great questions. Yeah.
Just some things. I mean, you're 50 something, right? I'm guessing.
I turned 59 yesterday. I made 59 yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, happy birthday yesterday. That's right. Okay, 59. So you're almost where I am. I'm up above you. But how can you condense that many years down to an hour? You know,
Exactly.
So we've missed a lot of things. And I was just thinking out loud to myself the other day, you know, what I was trying to put myself in your shoes as a young girl, right? Growing up in the church and your experiences and what that would have felt like. I know what my experience felt like, you know, with where I was, but that's very different from yours. And so I was trying to go there in my mind, and I had some questions for you. So reach back into the deep recesses of your memory, if you can, just kind of go there for a minute. So a couple of questions I had. What was your very first crush on a girl? Can you remember that? And how did she respond? And how did that play out for you? How old were you and what happened?
I didn't remember to go the right way here. I know it's like, okay. And I know.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
So I think that it's got to go back into, I don't think it was actually peer related. I'm going to say that. I'd say that the first time I probably was like many young people where you have a crush on an adult in your life, where you don't really realize it, where it's a teacher or someone older that you don't understand that it's something like that. So,
but you didn't verbalize that.
No, you don't verbalize it. Yeah.
It inside.
Yeah.
And and you didn't at that time. How old were you? Can you remember ish?
Elementary school.
Okay. Elementary school. So at that time you weren't thinking, am I gay? You were probably just thinking, I really like being around that person. Or you weren't maybe not even verbalizing that.
No, I do remember in elementary school thinking what it would feel like to like kiss a girl. I do remember thinking that way back when.
So fantasizing about kissing girls.
Yeah.
Like how fun that would be.
Yeah.
And getting kind of excited about the idea. I can put myself there with boys.
Yeah.
Same thing. You know, we were playing kissing tag.
Yeah.
And we were in first grade and things.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's interesting. So it was before you had reached puberty.
Mm-hmm.
You just had this feeling inside that you kind of thinking about girls and being attracted to them.
Yeah.
Okay. When you may have mentioned this in the first interview, I can't remember for sure. When did your mother realize that you were?
I'm going to say for sure she did when I was 18. It might have been before that. I don't know what she would say nowadays, but I know for sure it was the summer after I graduated high school.
Did she mention it to you? Did she get angry with you?
Oh,
was it mad. A confrontation?
She was absolutely angry. Yeah.
Angry. Did it have to do with the Girl Scout thing?
Yeah, it was all to do with Girl Scouts, and she was afraid that I was going to be gay, and the Girl Scouts was going to turn me that way, and my life was going to be ruined, and she had to get me out of that environment. We all had to go back to church. Yeah. So it was this summer. It was when I was 18, after I graduated high school.
But she had seen signs, maybe younger, that you might have.
I think maybe that was part of what absolutely made her go more ballistic than she would have just normally without anything else. Yeah, maybe.
And when that happened, and you were 18-ish, when that happened, how did you react internally? Was it a fear like, oh no, I gotta change. I gotta, be like this. Look what it's doing to my family. Look at, was it like you internalized that, like, it's me, I gotta do something?
Definitely. Go the wrong way. Yes, I definitely did. That's exactly what you do. Yeah, I'm gonna go hide now.
Was it like
that is exactly what you do?
Like, oh no, like a fear, like, how am I gonna fix this kind of thing?
Yeah, it becomes an internal conflict. Your stomach, it was constantly in just knots. And it becomes a fear that, like, there's something wrong with you, obviously. And you think back, this is the early 80s, right? 1982. So obviously there's something wrong with you. There's something, the whole world says there's something wrong with you. There's no positive role model out there.
Well, you have the tennis players. Who are they? It was
Martina Navratilova, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the other one that did the it was the men versus the women.
Billie Jean King.
Yes. I remember those very well, and we all knew they were gay, but it wasn't like, it was kind of cool to me. It was like, look how strong they're, like strong women.
Yeah.
And they don't, was that not a good role model?
Yes, not a good role model.
Like that.
They're just too much. See, they're over the top. They're not. They're too much. They're
so you didn't look at them. You didn't look at them and go. You didn't think anything of them as a mentor or an example. You were like, they're tennis players. They're extreme. They're extreme. That I don't relate to that at all.
Exactly. They weren't even part of my world in all reality. Because like now I can name them because of so many years of experience, right?
Right.
And the fact that I think that Martina Navratilova yesterday came out and said, or day before, that she's cancer free. So I can name that now. But but at that point it was like I wouldn't have probably even really known who they were.
Right.
But
you wouldn't have identified. Okay. And so now let's move forward a little bit to where, I forgot to ask, what was your dad's reaction? Did he ever confront you?
No.
Or did he just let your mom do it?
My mom's super strong personality. And most of the time my dad just let my mom, my dad has since passed away. He's been gone for about 20 years right now. But my mom
get involved and
no
put pressure on you.
No, it was always my mom.
Okay.
My mom's always ran the show.
Okay.
She still does.
That's interesting. Maybe you got that gene, from her. Which is a good gene. I like it. I think more women need to feel like they can, that they have power. Okay, so when you decided to go on a mission, which is, of course, what year was that?
I left in 1985.
Yeah, 1985. That's still the time when they were saying women don't really need to go, only if you're not married kind of thing, and you don't have any prospects. Then you can go. We don't really need you guys. We're more about the boys, right? Yeah. And you're 2 years older than the boys that are out there, right?
Yeah.
So you're 19 or 20?
21.
Oh, 21.
21 at the time. Yeah. And you want to know something funny? I actually was dating a guy, and actually came from a legacy family. I think his great grandfather was I can't remember which prophet, but a prophet. And I had been dating him, and we had been looking at rings, and then I know, very interesting story. And then he broke up with me, and he told me I wasn't active enough in the church for him.
Okay. What were you missing?
I don't really know at that point. I don't know.
Okay. I don't know how much more you could have been.
That was
but maybe it wasn't that your family wasn't dynastic like his. So
probably was the family thing. Yeah, it probably was the family.
So let me ask. This is just tell me that's none of your business if I ask you anything that's not my business. Were
I
you
can't.
kissing him? Were
Yeah.
you
Yeah, it
physically-
was, but you know what? It was really, I think I cried for about 2 minutes and then I was over it and I never looked back. It
so
was
you weren't emotionally like
invested.
connected,
Not
invested.
truly. Yeah.
When
Compared,
you-
I mean, considering how much it looked like we were really, really,
Yeah,
I wasn't that.
involved. You're looking at rings, and then you
Yeah.
just got over
Yeah.
it.
You know,
So
you
when
know
you-
what's interesting?
Oh, sorry,
Excuse me,
go ahead.
Lila, just for a second. What I find interesting is because the LDS Church is an American church, and so many of the Christian fundamental beliefs that are touted as biblical Christian beliefs are American culture. And when you think about when I remember when my husband and I went to Israel, and we were walking through a mall in Cairo, and I'm watching these men holding hands, arms around each other, embracing. This was just in the mall.
Yeah.
And all the girls were hand in hand.
Mhm.
And then you look, I remember my stepfather was from England, and when we went over to visit his family, they do that European kiss thing on each cheek, and so there's so much more physical contact.
Yeah.
And even going back generations where women used to hold hands and kiss each other and all of this kind of stuff. And so I could see where, Jackie, where you're like, look, he's a great friend. I really like this guy. Yeah, kiss, whatever. And it didn't have to be a romantic thing, but culturally, we were like, oh, okay, now we're looking at rings. I have to kiss you. Okay. And so I could see where it doesn't have anything to do with attraction even. It's just a cultural, oh, yes, now we must do this.
It's the next step. Sure.
Yeah. So
And were you panicked at all about the idea of marrying him? How did that
I'd actually had a dream that it was like the wrong thing to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I'd actually knew it was the wrong thing to do.
That to me is
yeah.
your soul saying, no.
Yeah, don't do this. Yeah,
Don't do
I knew
it.
it was the wrong
It
thing
won't
to
work.
do. Yeah. So many people get married. We have a friend that she got married and she made her husband like get a graveyard job. So she never had to like sleep with him. And then they got divorced.
Yeah. That can't go on for too long.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
God.
it was actually, it was actually better. It was better for him. It was better for me.
Relief, I would think.
Yeah. It was better for everyone involved. So
that was around the time you decided to go on a mission. Right?
Yeah. And actually I'd already been thinking about it. And so that was a whole nother thing. Like he tells me you're not active enough. And I'm like, what? You're weird. So
that is not the reason.
No. And I'd gone with his family to their family cabin that they had that's been handed down for generations. And I mean, I'd gone to school with his siblings. And I mean, it was crazy. And I was like, So obviously he'd prayed about it too, and had a
obviously a patriarchal declaration on your worthiness right there.
Okay. So as you're going out getting ready to go on your mission, you have to go through these interviews, right? Prior to being called. And do they ask you, I've never been on a mission. So I'm wondering, did they ask you in those interviews if you had any feelings or thoughts about same-sex attraction? They didn't ask those things, right?
No, they're the same. They're the same questions you get for any temple recommend.
Oh, same thing. Okay. So they're not going to ask you specifically that. So you didn't have to worry about answering, lying or anything. And you probably had not, I'm guessing you hadn't done anything sexually that would get you in trouble or keep you from going on a mission at that point. At least not with anyone.
Nope. We're good.
Okay. So that wasn't a problem. Then you get out on the mission and you have female companions. Did you ever have a crush on a female companion?
Nope.
Or was it? No.
So
that wasn't hard. That wasn't like
I was working too hard.
Tempting.
So
talk
about that a little bit because I think that goes into I think that is really great for you to say that, because it really goes back into where your psyche was, as far as you're determined to be the best. And now you're on a mission. I'm going to be the best missionary. And so you could even separate even any kind of romantic or just attractiveness. It wasn't even on your mind, because I've got a list of things I have to do every day from the mission. And that's where your focus was.
Yeah, definitely.
You're wanting to be the best so you can like purge yourself of this thing.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah.
Okay.
And not only that, but I had a very strong, I knew I needed to be on a mission. There was just, I mean, call it whatever they call that emotional thing nowadays, but I knew that, but I knew that I needed to go on a mission. I had a very strong, emotional experience about this, spiritual experience, and I knew that that's what I needed to do. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I knew that I needed to go. And so I was sure that that's what I needed to do. And so I did, and I went. And while I was out there, I worked my tail off, and I worked all the time. And they called me to be a senior companion 3 months after being in the mission field, which I thought the mission president was off his rocker, because that never happens. You know, you don't call a senior, and a senior to a native speaker. I had a Paraguayan. She was one of the sisters in Paraguay. She was my greenie. And so I was called to be a senior companion. They'd send me into the areas that hadn't had baptisms for years. A lot of success, super lots of success. And I will continue to say that I have family that they're now generations. I'd say we're probably on 1, 2, 3, third generation of people that are in Argentina that are still members of the church. People that that joined the church while I was a missionary. So, I mean, obviously,
How do you feel about that now? I'm curious. You know, that you brought these people into the, cult.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you'd seen the Elder Pinegar, forget what the movie.
Right.
Yeah, where he goes back to his mission and tells the families that he's left the church, and they're like, "Oh, we'll pray for you. We're so sad," But he saw that the church had changed their life, had made their life better, and So have you been back to Argentina at all?
We went back 5 years later. So we went back in 92, and I haven't been back since then. Now my kids are, we're friends with, we're good friends with someone who was on our mission with us. And we were together at Christmas time. And we've all said we want to go back next year when I turn 60 and my son turns 25. And our kids have been, Mom, that's one place you haven't taken us yet, because they're always on my case that we're going places where we speak Spanish, like we've been to Cuba and Ecuador and Costa Rica, and they're like, well, we haven't been to Argentina and Mexico, and so I'm like, okay, so we said to our friend, well, let's go to Argentina next year. Jared will be 25, I'll be 60. So we're like, okay, so we're kind of maybe go to Argentina next year. That would be cool. But we haven't been back.
Are you afraid at all? I mean, would you make an effort to hook up with some of the families that you had converted?
Definitely. I mean, we're friends on Facebook.
Okay, so they know where you're at.
They know where I'm at. And I got birthday wishes from them yesterday. And so they know, they see my family, they see where I'm at. I see their families. I'm very much I write to them.
And they love you.
Yeah.
They love you.
Yeah.
You, not who you, what role you represent. I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's that I think is one of the things one of the last things I dealt with like this last summer was I was feeling a lot of guilt about bringing these people into this kind of toxic environment. But then I was like, well, it's helped them. and
Right.
they have brought that for them. It's been good.
They're
So
happy.
for as long as for them it's good, then I can't say anything bad about it. You
Right,
know?
right. And do you feel like, and I remember as I was watching this, the one gentleman that had talked about the fact that the church had gotten him to stop drinking, and so he was a better husband and a better father, and there were some cultural things. But do you think that the reason why maybe the church works better for them because they don't have that American cultural bubble over them? It's truly just a lifestyle that makes for better family relations or something, or what do you feel like? Why is it that it makes such a change in their life that it's all the other stuff that we're all harping on is like, whatever, it's Jesus and my family. That's the most important thing. Or what do you think?
I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that the eternal family aspect probably has a lot to do with it. It takes out that what can be in a Latino community, some toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Can remove that toxic masculinity out of the mix. So I think that has something to do with it. I think that might have something to do with that. What I worry about, especially in a country right now like Argentina that's going through incredibly difficult economic times, is that push to pay that 10% tithing when I know they can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know, that's my thing.
Yeah.
They can't afford to pay that 10% tithing. And I'm just like, and my mom and I were having this argument about the $150 billion enzyme peak thing yesterday. And so that's what kind of makes me angry right now. So yeah.
Wow.
For good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that just makes me sick, actually.
Yeah.
We could go down that rabbit hole for a while.
Well, yeah. But that's
one last question. Sorry, go ahead.
So I was just going to say again, I think that it focuses on the family, which is good, gets rid of that toxic masculinity, does away a lot with the drinking and the smoking and good health, and maybe puts women in a little bit more equal position in some ways, gives them leadership roles, which they wouldn't necessarily have in that kind of a situation. And yeah, so there's some good in that aspect, I think, that we wouldn't see without the influence of an American-based founded church.
Yeah, I kind of think that it's like a step. It's like for some people, the church is actually a step up from where they are.
Yeah.
If they're, addicted or living on the street or have, whatever, something really difficult or like culturally, like you're talking about, where it's actually a step up.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's like there's toxic masculinity in the church, right? So I'm like, I don't know about that one. But for them, it's better than it would be without it. And all the alcohol, like some cultures they drink morning, noon, and night. They drink all day. The men a lot of them are alcoholics. And the women are having to work to make money because their husbands are useless and they're just drunks. My son, who served in Mongolia, said the same thing. He said, we can baptize women and kids all day long, but the men are a problem because they're all alcoholic or smoke, and it's very difficult to stop. So, I can see how the church would actually be a benefit. It offers them structure. It offers them a way out of their, whatever their toxic situation is. But then, you get to it where you need to outgrow the church, or it doesn't fit everyone and it doesn't help everyone. So anyway, that's another topic for another day, I think. But so my next question was about your mission. Just simply, while you were there, did you ever have an opportunity to talk to any of your companions about being gay?
Yeah,
did they
actually
ever come up?
Yeah, actually, the one that was my she's since passed on from cancer, but she's actually the one that was she was my companion, and then she went to my wife right after she was my companion. And she was actually one that was in love with the companion she had previous to me. So it was a whole big mess.
Coded conversation.
Yeah. So we did have conversations. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And remind us that did she ever feel close enough to you to have a one-on-one conversation like I'm same-sex attracted?
Oh
or,
yeah.
or really like sister so-and-so and
Mm-hmm.
and did you ever like inside think, oh, I could come out and talk to her as well. I feel comfortable to talk to her as well. I can't remember what you said last time.
Yeah.
Or did you just sit and listen? Okay.
We did. I'm trying to think if we had those conversations in the mission field or if we had those conversations after the mission field. I don't remember because everything kind of gets jumbled up now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And in the mission field,
it doesn't.
In the mission field, I was like maybe not wanting to talk about those things as much.
Yeah.
Because, you start talking about them and then everything bubbles up.
Yeah. Sure.
But we probably did talk about it as I think about it. Yeah. Because there was so much time that I spent talking to her, trying to get her to snap out of things and get to work. Because I wasn't used to not working.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, I got to be out there knocking doors.
Even then, even when you found someone that you had something in common with, you were like, yeah, whatever. Did you write in your journal? Did you pray? Did you do the other 5 things that are that was where your focus was? That's so incredible.
I get it. Yeah. and then, with that desire to do everything right, you probably wouldn't have been of the mind to not only not talk about it much, but also like, was there because I've heard that this goes on in some missions where there's like this tattletale thing where if something like that were to come up, one of you might go to the president and say, this sister is gay and I can't be with her. There's some of that goes on in the mission field with the boys. I know that. But if you're both on the same page, I can see how you would just kind of keep that quiet and move on with your work.
Yeah.
And just ignore it for the time being.
I'm always the person that's so out of that loop of, I've never been that person, not where I work, not where I taught for 31 years, not in the mission field. I'm just the person that like hunkers down and does what needs to be done. So the mission president was always just like, send me. I was not ever that person that was in that mix. So that might have happened, but I wouldn't know anything about that.
It wasn't what you were involved in.
No.
That's a good question, Lila. I'm going to ask my daughter about that because she's a lot like Jacki from the standpoint that she's just a get her done type person. And when she was on her mission, she was also, her mission president was like, if you were a boy, I'd make you district leader. She was like the female, whatever they could do to make her district leader. And I have never thought to ask her that as a senior companion. Was there almost like what they have at BYU honor code, rat on your friends type thing? I'll have to ask her. That's a great question, especially with girls. That's interesting.
Yeah, I never felt like a pressure to rat anyone out.
Okay.
My own pressure. Yeah, it was just my own pressure to work hard and get the job done, and
interesting.
And do the work. That was just my own pressure. And it's just what I always have just done to my own self,
Were you really sad when it was time to go home? Did you wish you could have stayed out there for 2 more years, or where were you at the end?
No, I don't think I wanted to stay 2 more years. I think I was ready to come home. It was hard. And back then it was really hard. I was ready to come home. I'm not much of a meat eater. So being in Argentina was really difficult that way.
Yeah.
And I had my appendix out while I was there. That was a really big thing. I was going to miss the people. Yeah. But I was ready. I think I was ready to come home and finish and go into the next phase of my life. Yeah.
Which is very normal and healthy, I think.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that want to stay out there forever, it's like, what are you trying to avoid?
Yeah.
You know, why would you want to stay here?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. You get home, and how long before you and your current wife connect?
My one and only wife. So we got home in March.
Only wife you ever had.
Only had one.
I misspoke, but yeah.
We got home in March, and we got together by August.
Ooh, that was quick. Okay, and then how long before
you know those return missionaries, right? You got to get home and
you reconnect.
Yeah.
So how long before you were like living together?
Well, we were both still going to school. So, but we were seeing each other all the time. And she was going to BYU and I was at the U. So I was still living at home. So we didn't start. I moved down with her. My last semester. I just finally, probably my last semester of school. So it took about a year before we were living together. And then when I moved out, when I graduated and I got my own apartment in 88, and I started teaching in Salt Lake Valley, that's when she moved in with me. So
moved in with you.
Fall of 88.
Okay. So when you started cohabitating, I have a couple questions about that. Were you going to church?
Sometimes. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes. And do you think that people in your ward knew that you were living together, or did they think roommates?
Yeah.
No big deal. Okay.
It was Wendy Watson and what's her face. That was just, no, there's nothing. They're just roommates.
That's right.
Two single women
in a one-bedroom apartment. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Really tight. Okay. Yeah. So then at what point did you decide to have children? And because you had the babies before you got married, right?
Right, because you couldn't get married till then. So we moved here to California in 1990 when she graduated from BYU in 89, and then she couldn't find a job anywhere in Utah or Idaho. So they hired both of us down here in Southern California in 1990 at the same high school.
Nice.
So we were the 2-for-1 sale that year in the same department. So we taught in the same department for 31 years until I retired.
31 years. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. That's almost as long as I was married. That's crazy. We were together. We started together in 87, and we had our daughter. I had our daughter in 96. She was born in May of 96. So 9 years later, you had your first child.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Questions about that. You mentioned in the last podcast that you had a desire to have a baby. You just wanted a baby. And your wife wasn't necessarily as excited, right? She wasn't like, I need to have a baby. She was just kind of like, hey, I'm along for the ride if this is what you want. But she really didn't want to. That wasn't her, because you're the one that had the babies and she didn't, right?
Right, correct.
I wonder if that's usually, and that the follow-up question to that, and once again, just tell me to shut up. I've always wondered this, and I think most straight people are curious about this. Is there usually a one that's more masculine and one that's more feminine in a lesbian relationship?
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be. No, I think that falls back into an old kind of stereotype. I wouldn't consider. I think we both kind of like very similar in the way we look.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you didn't identify that way. It wasn't like I'm the girl and you're the guy.
No, there's no butch femme in ours. No.
Okay. There are in some. I've seen that, but I just wondered if that was the case.
Yeah. No.
So you're the one that has this drive to have the baby, but you don't get pregnant right away, right?
It was right. 2 years. Yeah, it took 2 years.
2 years. So I wondered if she was ever like, I'll do it. You're having a hard time. I'll do it.
No, she didn't really. She just felt like she didn't want to do it. No, she didn't want to do it. Yeah, she felt like there were other obstacles for her to do that, and she didn't really feel like it. Yeah.
Okay. So it was really your push, your drive. You wanted to bring the kids in.
Yeah.
And so back to the ward. Are you attending down there at all as you're contemplating having a baby together?
Not really. Not down here. No. Mm-mm.
Okay. So you're not dealing with people looking at you going, "How you're pregnant?" What?
Yeah. No.
You know,
No,
like
but at
how did
school,
this happen?
yeah.
Okay, at school. So tell us about that.
They're like, Miss Riedeman, what's happening?
No, the lucky thing was that I lost a lot of weight because I was really sick. There was no such thing as morning sickness. It was morning sickness all day long for 9 months.
Yeah.
So I lost a lot of weight, and she was not very big. So it was, and then the day I went into labor with her, Terry was gone, and the kids were like, "Oh, something must have happened to Ms. Riedeman, and Ms. LaJusa has to help her." Like, I don't know, there was like Ms. Riedeman fell in the shower, and Ms. LaJusa had to take her to the hospital.
They didn't know you were pregnant?
It was crazy.
The kids at school didn't know you were pregnant?
Well, our principal did, and teachers did, but the kids were like, I thought they would have figured it out, but apparently they were clueless. And there had been another teacher that was unmarried and pregnant at the same time as I was, a few months ahead of me. And she had gotten just grief. And the principal had like really taken care of me. Like one night at back to school night, she'd gotten cornered by the parents and just ripped to shreds. And so the principal had been very
like she's being a bad example or what?
Because she was a single mom. Yeah.
Because she was single.
Mm-hmm. And so the principal was very careful about taking care of me and in situations and not putting me in those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
So she was really, really good about that. Yeah.
Was it a female principal?
Mm-hmm, sure was. Okay. Yeah.
Of course.
So but the kids, the students probably knew that you lived with your.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They knew that because there had been like an article in the school newspaper. There were a lot of couples that worked at our school that were like married, and they had done it. They'd done an article on us in the school newspaper. It was not
so
like it was just.
But it would still be weird to see you pregnant under those circumstances because back then we didn't talk about artificial insemination much. Like we didn't have the internet. So people were like, would sit there and scratch their head and think, no, how did this happen?
Yeah,
how did she get pregnant if she's living, she's gay?
Yeah.
What's going on?
It's a bit of a question.
Yeah. I can see how they'd be like, what's happening?
Yeah. So Jacki, do you remember timeline wise? I'm trying to remember. It may have been earlier, but do you remember the whole Dan Quayle, the TV show?
Murphy Brown?
Yeah. Yes. Was that around the same time when they were?
It was a little bit earlier, like a year. Okay. It was a couple years before. Yeah. Yeah. Do you remember?
So that was the first time I think that it became where people were like, single mother to destroy the country where the nation will fall. So,
Yeah, but it wasn't a single mom. See, we were two parents. We were co-parenting.
Yeah.
So it was a totally different situation.
That was weirder. That a child would be raised with two moms, right? Yeah. They might think, whoa,
right,
chaos,
I'd love to know what the mindset was like. Oh, but these two women, they're going to take this baby, but a single mom, destroy the nation. Fabulous psychological quandary there. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And they didn't even, I don't even think the two men having a baby thing had really gotten off the ground because even now that's weird. People are like, two fathers.
But we have friends who have sons the same age as ours.
Oh, really?
We have two sons, yeah.
And they're men.
Yeah.
Men. Yeah.
And then we have other friends that their son's in high school right now. Their eldest was in Terry's class last year.
So it was happening, but it just wasn't like broadcast. Like we didn't. like I said, social media wasn't a thing. So you just didn't see it. You know, it was all kind of scandalous back then and whispered about, right? Yeah. So I wondered how that affected you, how that affected the kids when they started, you know, being in school. How did their siblings, or not siblings, their classmates tease them? Were they bullied? Was there any of that went on?
We were very clear. We would go in like when Cassandra started. Well, okay, so our kids were totally involved, like every other child here in this valley where we live, in dance and sports and all that kind of good stuff. And so I remember one of the first things when our daughter started competitively dancing, we were at one of the competitions. She was 5, and she was in the hot tub with her little friend, and her friend said to her, "So, you have 2 moms. Which mom does your hair and your makeup?" Because you know, it's like she only had 1 mom. So how could this work?
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
That was she couldn't figure it out. And then school was not. Our daughter always been very outspoken. She's like, we were on another dance thing because we would do these excursions when we go to these national things. And we were on this train in Northern California, and she goes up to this little girl and she's like, "My name is Cassandra, and I have 2 moms. And if you have a problem with that, then you can't be my friend." And that's just how she's been her entire life. That's her entire life. Yeah. So that's who she is, and that's how she advocates for herself. And our son's always had his sister to, you know, go and blaze the trail before him. So that's always, he's never really had to. Yeah.
So they weren't bullied or teased just because they were so blatantly out there that it was like, I dare you.
That's just who they are. And our son is always just like, he just jokes because, you know, boys, they're different. And so like boys are like, "But your mama jokes, right?" And he just turns and you go, "Well, which one?" You know, and then it's like his friends
kind of diffused it, right?
Yeah. So he kind of just turned it on his head. He did get in trouble one time, but he didn't get in trouble. There was this kid at school when he was in junior high that we kind of suspect the family's from let's say not a very kind of like a anti-diversity kind of group, maybe a little bit don't like certain kinds of tattoos and things like that to wear. We'd go to certain kinds of rallies, and the dad, don't really want to label them, but pretty sure that's what kind of family they are. And he would bother Jared all the time. And so there was lunch, and he was 8th grader, and Jared gone to school with this kid all his life. And one day this kid was just following Jared around and bugging him. And Jared and his group had gone from place to place at lunch. And finally Jared was just so mad that he just called off and just whacked him and pushed him into the bushes because he was tired of him giving him a hard time. Now that should have been grounds for Jared to be suspended for a couple of days, right? But the counselor, being part of the LGBTQI community, called us and said, "Yeah, Jared was in every right to do what he did, and I'm not suspended him." So
that's so great.
Yeah,
very nice. Very good.
Do you feel like because of the culture that you were in California that you were able to be successful versus, let's say, if you guys would have moved to Ohio? Or, you know, something like that. So it was definitely like, well, this was or forget Ohio. How about West Valley, Utah? I mean,
I mean, I'm sure that being in California was helpful. But where we're at in California is very, very conservative. Okay. I'm not gonna, that any other way. It's you're either Mormon or Baptist here where we live. Yeah. And we are one of the few areas here that have a Republican as our member in Congress.
Right.
In the US Congress. So we can't.
Yeah, that is different.
Yeah.
That's not typical California.
No. So we are very conservative in this area. We can't get it's just crazy. So being in California helps. Right. But this area of where we happen to find the pocket that we call Little Utah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
good.
That's funny.
It's
You know
just
what
there
I
aren't
find?
enough.
Yeah, what I find amazing is I've never heard anyone. I remember when I first read The Tattooed Mormon. Did you any of you read that book? And I remember
Is that
thinking,
the girl that? Sorry, is that the she's a convert?
Yeah.
Is it written by her? Had tats and nose ring and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
Okay.
she was a convert and went out to Utah after she converted. And for some reason, President Monson found her and just made her the token, like, look what the church can do for you, even though she's got a full sleeve. She's just gotten married and gone through the temple. And I just remember when I was reading it, two schools of thought was, why isn't anyone talking about the chapter that she talks about when she first got out to Utah and she would be standing in line at Cafe Rio and she would see mothers gather their children around and back off as if she was some kind of an, and I said, did anybody else read that? Can we talk about that? That's what we should be talking about, or the other thing was Carolyn Pearson in her Ghost of Polygamy talking about when they had to leave Utah because her husband was gay and they knew they had to get out of that environment. And I thought, why aren't they talking about that? This is a dangerous culture. It is not accepting. It is not loving. You are shunned. You will be the person in the neighborhood that people actually drive around, as if you have Ebola or something. And so I just remember thinking when I read that Tattooed Mormon, I thought, well, she should have come to Portland. Would have been no big deal at all, So the fact that, but she was made such a token, in Utah. Oh, but look, she's
found
the way. Yeah.
They love to fight someone, that's a little off. Like, remember the whole "I'm a Mormon" campaign? That's what it was. Find, these people that look worldly, but they're Mormon. See, we're normal. We're just like everyone else.
No, we're not.
And then they proceed to shame everyone else. It's like they'll invite the token person, but that's all. It doesn't extend beyond that.
Yeah.
Well,
so
no, because when my mother-in-law passed away in October, but when we would go to Cedar Hills to visit, and stay with them, and I wear tank top and shorts nowadays, and I have 2 tattoos. Woo, 2. But I'm wandering around.
You're a lacquer. Move it up here, Jackie. Get on board.
But I'm wandering around in Utah Valley with my tank top and my tattoo showing, and people are like, wide berth. It's like I have, I don't know, COVID times 10, right? I mean. Yeah, it was, and they don't know anything else about me, but I've got tank top and I've got 2 tattoos. So
check.
Yeah.
So with all of that, okay, with your tank top and your tattoos and everything, was your mother and father still living when you did all of that, and when you had the babies?
My parent, my dad, my mom is still alive. She lives in the family home in West Valley City. I talked to her yesterday. She's 80 years old. I love my mom. She's great. She's still there.
Was she accepting of you at that point? Like anything you did, whether it was having a baby with, artificially, or if it was getting a tattoo or, picking up your garments.
My mom is my mom. You know how moms are. She's like, she's not like, she knows I'm going to do what I do now. And she's not much going to say much to me anymore.
She loves you anyway, right? She still loves you. She doesn't shame you.
Right.
She doesn't put guilt on you and all of that.
Although
I just wonder how that went down.
My sisters tell me that I'm the chosen child now. And I'm like, yeah, right.
Really? So you have sisters?
2 younger.
2 sisters. Now, are they straight?
Yes. Yeah.
And they've been accepting of you from.
Yeah, everybody's been good. Yeah, and Terry's family too.
Nice.
Having the kids was actually really a good thing. Having the kids actually gave
you a common bond.
Yeah.
Like,
It
oh, well,
was-
your
that's-
mother.
Yeah,
your
it was
mother.
actually really good.
Get that.
It was actually very, very nice. And so my parents, or actually my dad, was just a really good grandfather. He was really an awesome guy. He passed away really young. He was only 60. So yeah. And Terry's dad, we lost Terry's dad that same year too. We lost him in January. He was 60, and we lost my dad in April. He was 60. They both passed away the same year.
Wow.
So yeah.
My husband died at 60 as well.
Yeah. So,
Young.
Yeah, too young.
Yeah.
So Jared was 3. Yeah. So it's been it's been a while. So but having the kids brought, especially Terry's parents, who were a little bit more at that point, a little bit more active in the church, a little bit more traditionally Mormon, a little bit more reticent about Terry and I, having the kids really brought them to be more accepting. Yeah.
Cool.
So that was good. Because even toward the end, Karen, my mother-in-law, would still introduce me as, this is my daughter, Terry. This is my granddaughter, Cassandra. This is my grandson, Jared. And this is Jacki. And then I'd have to say, hi, I'm Terry's wife.
You had to explain it because she couldn't bring herself to explain it.
Couldn't say it. Bleh. Couldn't come out. Just couldn't come out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So even
I
at
guess
the
you just have
end,
to roll
toward
your
the
eyes at
end,
that, right?
it was one of those things, you know.
So, okay. Here, I'm moving on.
Okay.
Not that we could talk all day about any of these things, but I think you mentioned in 2015 was the turning point for your son, his belief.
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What was the thing that
The
hit
policy
him?
of exclusion. Yeah.
How
That
did
was
you
it.
hear about it? Do you remember?
I think it was just, I think it was probably
It was
just the
kind of leaked.
grapevine. Pardon?
Yeah, okay. It was a leaked thing. It wasn't
Yeah,
like,
it was a leaked thing, and it blew up over the internet, right?
Right.
So probably because we all, we're all we're still connected to church things via the internet and all of that stuff. So we heard about it on the internet, and then we started talking about it, and then he was like, well, that is not going to fly with me. And that was it. That was the last time he was like, well, I'm just done.
that was it. That was
Yeah,
the camel
there's no way. I mean, and at that point he had just recently said maybe he would have the missionaries come and he would look into having the discussions and being baptized. But at that point it was like, why? And then
why?
yeah, and then
And
after
he
that,
would have had to do all those things. He would have had to disavow you.
Yeah.
And your his mother.
yeah, because in 2015 he was 16. Yeah, he turned 16 in 2015. So so he couldn't have been baptized anyway.
No, not until he was 18, and then he would have had to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If it lasted, the policy didn't last. Well, I guess it lasted 3 years.
Yeah.
But so when this was happening, were you watching like Mormon stories or reading anti-Mormon literature or anything?
No, at that time I wasn't. I just barely gotten into this. My daughter's been doing this for longer than I have, and I've kind of been a little bit more reticent. Then when that came out in November, and then on Valentine's Day in 2016,
then you were disciplined, right?
They had the disciplinary courts for both of us and disfellowship both of us.
So talk a little bit about that, because I'm trying to, for some reason, I can't get this to come up. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Nope. We see
Okay.
nothing.
You
But
see
you
nothing.
guys.
Okay.
guys.
Well, hello.
We see you guys.
All right. Okay. Well, we'll just get away. We'll get away with that.
So
okay. Anyway, but explain a little bit about how, as I mentioned, you have these babies. You haven't been able to legally get married yet, but you have these babies blessed in a church that, and I don't even remember actually. I don't feel like in the 90s, we really heard a lot of over the pulpit anti-gay things. I think the church was still trying to pretend like there were no gay people in the church, Brother Bednar. And I think they were still kind of thinking that this is an outside worldly problem. We don't have that problem in our church. We're just going to talk yada, yada, yada. You know, we're going to pretend like this doesn't exist. And so you're kind of going to church, not going to church, show up once in a while. Remind me, did you guys have callings?
No.
When you were, no. Okay. So you're just kind of visiting once in a while.
Mhm.
And you have the babies blessed in your parents' ward. So it wasn't even
Mhm.
in the ward that you're, you know, but so like intuitively you're going through this rote action that you've just been kind of, you know, pulled along but then finally say that again.
Conditioned to
Yes.
to do. Yeah.
Total robot. And so 2008 comes. Finally, there's more. And now this has become a, you know, Prop 8. Even though me and my little sheltered life, I don't even know. I don't live in California. I don't know what Prop 8 is. I don't know what people are talking about. And you're legally able to get married. You get married quickly. And then so you're still kind of humming along. And then in 2015, this policy comes into effect. And so all of a sudden, you've got someone saying you will be excommunicated. I don't know what they call. I know they pretended like there's a nice loving word for it now, but disfellowshipped with absolutely no merit besides the fact that you are a same-sex couple, legally married. That is the only thing we need. We could go through the roster of membership in the ward. Yeah, you've been arrested for drunk driving. You've been arrested for
Sexual assault. Yeah.
Sexual assault,
domestic violence.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Domestic violence, all of that. Nobody's going through the list going, hey, I just saw, John Smith was arrested the other day. It's like, oh, we got to work on him. We got to hope to fit. Nothing. Suddenly there's a policy. They will go through the list of members. Check, check, check. So talk a little bit about yours and Terry's excommunication, whatever they want to call it. What do they call it now?
Disfellowship.
But it's a court of love, right? I mean, or whatever they call it.
Yeah. So how did that happen? I mean, you're just living your life. Did you get a letter?
Yeah. Well, you remember this is in reference to the 2015 Supreme Court ruling that made marriage equality in all of the United States. So they got to do something, right?
So they got to do something.
They got to do something because now they can't have it be good because heaven forbid, right?
Right.
So they can't have everybody believe that they're okay with that. So not only does the marriage equality ruling come down in June of 2015, but now in November of 2015, you've got the policy of exclusion, which includes that, now that being gay and married is the equivalent of being a murderer. Basically, it was the same. I think that was the only other thing that you automatically got excommunicated for, right? Yeah. And then, so we got letters and we got them set for February 14th, Valentine's Day.
I know that.
Love.
And that's like they did that on purpose. I mean, how insensitive.
Yeah.
Sensitive. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And they're both the same day. Yeah. And so I was like, I'm not even going. It's not even worth my time. I said, let's have a party. I think I said this last time. I said, we're going to have a party. So we went to our friend's house and we invited a whole bunch of people to come to our party. And I said, I'm not going. And while we were at the party, the missionaries came. Remember I said that?
Right.
That's my favorite part of the story. I love that. Like, tell me there's not that the universe doesn't have a sense of humor.
I know. Well, our friend invites him in because that's how he is, because he's ex-Mormon, and he invites him in. Oh, elders, come on in. And
come on in, boys.
Yeah, elders, and sits down and talks to them. And then my wife leaves with our good friend, and she actually went to the hearing. And our friend went with her. And I was like, not happening. And at first I wasn't even going to write a letter. I was just like,
don't even dignify it with a
This is not even
response.
worth my time, right? But then I
Yeah.
started thinking, no, because I come from pioneer stock. My ancestors helped build the Salt Lake Temple, the Manti Temple. Brigham Young told them where to settle. This is, I deserve to at least have some voice in my membership. So I sent a letter, and then that's where it stood since 2016.
So you're not
what was-
excommunicated.
No,
Not excommunicated, and you didn't resign.
no,
You
not
haven't
yet.
resigned.
Not
Okay.
yet.
So
Okay.
if they disfellowship you, then your name is still on the records
On
and they
the rolls.
can count on the rolls,
Mhm.
and they can count you in
Yeah.
that. We can
Sneaky.
completely shun you, but we can count you in our numbers when we stand up next weekend and give
And say
a
how many
false
members there are.
report. Okay, I love that. Did Terry, when she came home from her, because she attended her disfellowship, was she just a mess, or did she tell you,
She didn't tell me
what?
that.
No, so it didn't really break her heart, or there wasn't anything.
I don't know.
Okay.
You have to have her tell you. I don't know. She didn't
Listen.
really talk much about it.
Okay. I can't imagine sitting there and being told that God's not happy with you, or you don't we'd love to not have to do this, but God's specific. And I always love it when they say, as Jesus said, and I'm like, where exactly in the New Testament does it say that? I don't
Yeah,
remember
right.
reading that, but
Yeah.
or what I love the reference that they have to the scriptures. They'll always say found in the scriptures, and I'm like, you
Yeah.
mean those ones Joseph Smith wrote,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, is that
the
what
ones
you're
that
talking about?
that have been archaeologically verified, or which one are these
Yeah.
scriptures?
Yeah. What are we talking about here?
Yeah. So that was the end. Your son was just like, I'm done. I'm done.
done.
Obviously, Cassandra was
And
done
your
a long time
daughter,
ago.
was she out?
She's done. Now I ask her, if you're so done, because she's like totally into, she's for years, she listens to all the John Dehlin stories. She does all that.
She knows all the stuff.
Yeah, she's out. But I say, why don't you take your name off the rolls?
Yeah.
Because she's got baptized, and hasn't done it. And I don't know why she hasn't done that yet.
Interesting.
But she hasn't done that
Everyone has a different, experience with that. Some are like, no way, I'm not leaving. That makes it too easy on them. They'll have to push me out.
yet.
Other people are like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be associated in any way, shape, or form. That's me.
Mhm.
I want to sleep. But I think it's different for everybody, and there's no one right way really to do it. But I wanted to ask you, you're not a believer, right?
I think it's a bunch of hogwash nowadays.
Okay. So
Quite
what
frankly.
was your reason, besides the fact that they're not LGBTQ affirming? What was the breaking point for you and your faith?
It's the simplest thing. I went to my 40th reunion for high school this last summer, and I had a graduating class of 500. And at my 40th reunion, there were 23 of us. I think 23 of us.
Wow.
And the reason that and I couldn't figure out why would only 23 of us out of 500 go to our reunion. And it was held on the upstairs of a bar in West Jordan. And I had a really good time. Most of everybody that was there I didn't hang out with, but there were a couple of people that came just to see me, which was really nice because I was coming from far away. And and then I found out that I was like, why didn't anybody come? And my friend, he said, well, my wife won't come because it's at a bar. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that. And so then I go and I said to my mom and my sister, I'm like, what is this? My people wouldn't go because it was at a bar. And my mom was like, oh yeah, my 60th reunion, we couldn't have it at this one park because they could serve alcohol at this park. So we had to have it at another kind of park where they wouldn't serve alcohol. And my sister said, oh yeah, my 30th reunion, we couldn't have somewhere because they could serve alcohol there. Nobody would go if they would serve alcohol. So I decided it wasn't just a my class thing. It's definitely a Utah thing. And I went, it's a cult. If you can control where you have class reunions, and if people or not will go, it's a cult. And honestly, that's something that like totally just, I don't know why it was so simple.
That's random. That's like out of nowhere. Just
kind of hit me out of nowhere. I'm like,
yeah, after everything you've gone through, that was the final straw.
Can you believe it?
I've been disfellowshipped. They don't accept my marriage. I'm fine. Wait, we can't have a reunion because it's in a bar? I am out of here.
I know, it's so random, right? They don't accept my kids, I mean, like, so random. And then I went, that's it. And then I started reading. Okay. And so when I was a kid,
at that point.
When I was a kid, I wanted to read No Man Knows My History by Fawn Brody. So I picked it up and I went, oh, no wonder they didn't want me to read this when I was 15.
Yeah.
And
she lays it out really clearly.
That was the end of it. Then I was done. Yeah.
Okay. So that I was really curious what it was, because sometimes for people it's a long, slow descent.
Yeah.
And they don't really have an event that happens that makes them go, breaks the shelf. Other people, it's a thing, it's one thing. Somebody says something, they're like, that's it. I'm out. I'm done. And they never look back. So it's interesting. I love hearing that story from, anyone's perspective, because it's so different for everyone. Yeah. So that's a good one. I've never heard that one.
It's a cult. It's a cult. I'm done.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. Okay. So I already, there's some of these that I feel like you've answered already.
And I was going to say, my son's been down. He's been at a rave in San Bernardino. He's supposed to be home today so that we can go out for a late birthday dinner for me. But, so we went for a hike the other day and something came up and he went, something about being Mormon. And I said, you still identify as being Mormon, even though you haven't been baptized or anything? And goes, well, yeah, culturally, Mom. I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. So isn't that really strange? And
a lot of people do that. They're like,
do that.
This is my culture. These are my people. And I'm like, I don't feel that way. I feel like they were for a while until I learned what was really going on. And now I've disavowed, speaking of disavowing, I've disavowed that, that is not my culture. They are not my people. I am not affiliated, nor do I want to be. I don't hate, my kids are in the church, right? I love my kids and I'm not going to, and I don't even talk about it to them because it will just strain our relationship.
Yeah.
Right? That's the main reason. Okay. Here's a question for you. If you could tell straight people one thing to help them understand you better, or just any one thing you would just love all straight people to hear, what would you tell them?
Wow. That's a good question. Wow. There's so many things I think I would have said over the years, but now those things aren't the same.
It can be more than one thing. You could say more than one thing.
I think it would be just don't judge. Don't judge and accept. You just can't judge. People are just people. And, you didn't, don't judge. You didn't choose. My classic thing is always, when did you choose to be straight? So, LGBTQI people don't choose either. So
Right.
don't judge, and just be understanding, especially for the youth. I mean, especially for the youth.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a good one. I like that. Don't judge. Basically, it's like stop with the judgment thing. Quit it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's another one. Wait, I better not do that. I'll wait till the end for that one. Okay, how did it feel for you? Oh, no. Here's this one. What was the hardest thing or things you endured as a young person once you knew you were attracted to the same sex? What was the hardest thing you had to endure?
Oh, when I was young, that absolute feeling that it was wrong, that there was something innately wrong with me, and
Yes.
society didn't accept me, that I was
You're not accepted.
wrong. Yeah, that I wasn't good. Yeah.
I mean,
Especially being I'm sorry, Lila. I was just going to say, especially being the oldest in your family, having two little sisters, there's a strong female presence in your family, and you've got to set that example. So you've got, first child, you've got a strong mother, you've got a lot of pressure in that area. Then you've got the church teachings on top of all of that. I can see that.
Yeah. So there's something innately wrong with me, and I was broken, basically.
Broken.
Yeah, I was
just
broken.
that feeling, because you don't know how to fix that. Like there's no handbook. There's nothing to tell you how. So it's like this awful, I can imagine just this black cloud hanging over you. Like, I'm
you
not
can't.
right.
And you couldn't talk about it because it was so wrong. It was so broken that you couldn't talk about it.
Right.
Unless you could find someone else like you. And then it was like, oh my gosh, let's talk about this, because finally someone understands me. I can imagine that would be so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. This is kind of rhetorical. Okay. So with those feelings, did you have like a self-hatred, or like did you feel like you couldn't accept you? Or did you always know deep down inside, I'm a good person and God loves me? I don't care what all these people think.
That's a really good question. I don't think I ever did it. I don't think I ever felt a self-hatred, because I never turned to the alcoholism and the drug addiction and the
Medicaid.
the bad behavior. Yeah. The self-harming behavior. Depression, yes. Depression, yes. But the other like bad behavior, the self-harm behaviors, no. So I would have to say that basically I must have believed that I have self-worth. But also I overachieved. I had to constantly be doing something.
Right. So did you have any therapy for this? Was there ever? No. Okay. So you're on your own completely.
Yes.
And so I can see how overachieving would be considered a really healthy thing. It's like, I'm doing good things with my life. I'm not doing bad things. Right. I can see that. I mean, that's probably what a lot of people do, is they double down and try to be ultra good, perfectionist, Okay.
And with the people that I've worked with in like affirmation and things like that, there was a lot of that. A lot of people were like the high achievers that did everything, that were like the bishops and the state presidents and the super performing people. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So would you say that when did you start with affirmation?
1992. So I don't know, 1992, 28-ish.
Okay. This is after you're involved with your wife.
Yeah, this is after we moved to California.
Okay. That's when you started. And is that a church sponsored thing?
No.
It's not. It's just secular.
No. Now it's more this current, like if you look at affirmation now, it's more tied to the church, but back in the day, no, it wasn't at all.
Okay. Well, how we talked about before, the church likes to take positive programs
Mm-hmm.
and absorb them and create and make them their own somehow better.
Isn't that funny how they do that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's awful. Okay, so that was one place besides your friends in the mission that you identified with, and then your wife, who maybe wasn't your wife yet, but you guys were together and you knew, you had your support system there with her and some friends and some people, right? If you, and this is kind of like my final question, okay? Because I think this is what I ask myself too, and I think it's appropriate here. Knowing what you know now, what is something you would go back in time and tell your younger self if you could?
I would go back and tell myself that you don't have to be perfect, that you can be yourself, that you can live an authentic life without hiding who you are, and be happy without, and it's all going to work out anyway.
And you're not broken.
Yeah, and you're not broken. Yeah, at all.
Yeah, not at all. Like, this is how God made you. This is actually a beautiful thing. I mean, and that's what I do.
And it's going to work out. It's going to work out. And you don't have to worry about it because it'll work out. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love that.
I think that's I think that's so important to realize you have two healthy children, psychologically healthy, physically healthy, doing well, contributing back to society. You have a good relationship with your spouse. I don't know a lot of heterosexual couples that can claim that. And I loved Pete Buttigieg just put a post on, and he had a picture of his husband and their baby. And he just said, one thing I can tell you, you're never going to find any back skeletons in my closet. I'm paraphrasing, but basically you're never going to find any stories of me being with a hooker or any of the stuff that they're finding all of these other people that are running for political offices, and you see that so often. People that have been together for 38, 45 years, they're very, they're very true to each other, true to their spouse. They have successful families, and just the hypocrisy of saying that this is not the family, that God would want to see. I'm like, let me start naming the families that God would not like to see. And they're all heterosexual families: abuse, cheating, like you say, domestic violence, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just so hypocritical. And especially like you said, I remember when you talked about having that infatuation with the teacher, I remember being in love with my 6th grade teacher, Mr. Myers. I was just like, and I remember the last day of school, he brought his girlfriend, and I was devastated.
Yeah.
I was like, well, there you go. I'll never get married. Mr. Myers has a girlfriend, and to deny that was just who I knew I was attracted to men. I was attracted to boys. And for people to deny that that's just who you are is the most backward, just insane way of thinking in this day and age, knowing what we know. Like you said, Jackie, I don't know. Have you ever been attracted to a woman? No, I would never have been. Well, then shut up, because you don't know who you are. And I just think if we started looking at more and more of these wonderful, beautiful families. I remember listening to, forget what his occupation was, but he was addressing a political scenario. I don't remember whether he was addressing Congress. He might have been doing something to getting the same-sex marriage thing passed. But he just listed, he said, we're taking on all of your children. We're adopting your children. Right. And it was just beautiful. It's like the dysfunction that these people are willing to take these kids that are coming from complicated home lives and making them their own. And it's just ridiculous. And I just wish people could understand that even though you were indoctrinated, even though you were brainwashed and all of the other cult-like behavior, at some point you had to be true to yourself. and with such success and love. I think that's the biggest thing, is you didn't go about it with anger. You went about it with success and love and just like confidence.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. That's the big thing. I mean, people that are gay and lesbian that have families, you don't just have them accidentally.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's a plan.
true.
You don't have them by accident, so it takes planning and money. It took money.
I love that. I love that, Jackie, that you said when a gay and lesbian family decides to have children, it's not by accident. But you didn't have to get married, right? There was no gunshot on all of that. That's beautiful. I love that. It's a choice.
Yeah, it is a choice.
We're going to bring these children in and we're going to make them successful. We're going to create a world for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So
I think it's great. And, if you look back, if I've read some books that have been helpful for me to get rid of my internal tapes from the church. And, Sapiens is one of them. Another one, Sex at Dawn, where they, you look at the history of humans. This is not something new. This is not something abnormal. This is part of normal development of the human race. Not everyone's hetero. Hello. Right. And we're not meant to be all hetero.
Right.
Like, there is a balance in this, and there's a reason for it. And we need to stop trying to force the round pegs into the square holes forever. Just let it go. I want to just like shake Dallin 8 jokes and just say, stop this rhetoric. Just stop it.
It's so harmful.
It's so harmful. And then you wonder why kids are killing themselves. You wonder, my own father gave a talk in conference, 1981, I think it was, saying that it was a choice, it was a sin, that if you had healthy, righteous parents, you wouldn't want to be gay.
Right.
He made it like people chose this, right?
Yeah.
It was an act of rebellion that they wanted to, and
think how old I was in 81. I was 17. I was dealing with this in 1981. Yeah.
I know.
See?
And what happened was my dad actually, before he died, quite a bit, maybe 10 years before he died, a woman emailed him and told him that her son had listened to my dad's talk on, I don't know, on the internet, I guess, had listened to that talk from 1981 and had killed himself.
Oh my gosh.
And that was devastating for my dad to hear, of course.
Yeah.
I caused this. And you know what? He just, at that point, he said, I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong.
Wow.
Yeah. And he told that woman, he said, I am so sorry. If I could take those words back, I would. I was speaking the words that everyone was saying back then. He said, I thought I was saying the right thing.
Right.
And he goes, I know better now. And, I'm so sorry. Of course, he couldn't bring this child back. It's so devastating. And they just don't seem to care.
No.
The fallout is like, they ignore it. Oh, it's the altitude? That's what they're saying? All the people that died after, or, by suicide after the 2015, what do you call that?
Exclusion.
Exclusion policy.
Yeah.
Policy of exclusion. Big mistake.
Big mistake. And all these people died because of that. And they attributed it to the altitude, that it makes people depressed. Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, right after you said this, all of a sudden the altitude kicks in. I don't think so. And then so they can change it. But the bad thing, that the harmful part is they said it was God. God told it.
There you go. That's the bad thing right there. Yeah, they attribute it to this higher power.
They throw God under the bus, basically, for their own prejudice and their own toxic hatred. And they put it in God's lap.
Let me read this to you. When they made the policy change, they said the children of parents who identify themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender may now be blessed as infants and baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints without First Presidency approval, President Dallin H. Oaks announced Thursday morning, April 4th. In addition, the church will no longer characterize same-gender marriage by a church member as apostasy for purposes of church discipline, although it is still considered a serious transgression. And I just find that hilarious that they had to come back and say, well, okay, yeah, oops. And the funny thing is, if you listen to Mike on LDS discussions when he's talking about failed revelation, and I love the idea that he actually compared the blacks in the priesthood. There was an interview done by, and you mentioned, no, it wasn't you, Lila, it was Martine, LeGrand Richards. And LeGrand Richards had made a statement, which I think he thought was just kind of off record, and somehow it became on record. And he was very upset about it. But he talked about how the blacks in the priesthood came about, how President Kimball handled it, how he brought the 12 together. And then if you listen to President Nelson talk about how the exclusion policy, he followed that almost word for word, trying to make it out like it was a revelation that all of the 12, all 15 agreed. It was almost verbatim what Kimball had said. He created it. And then to have to go back and change it is just, but you know, I posted something about it 3 years ago, how miraculously this thing changed, and people, that's line upon line. It's current revelation. They just, you know, and it's like, I have a hard time, but I go, hey, I was right there. I didn't know the details. I was just following my leader. And I remember going, yeah, that's probably better for the family. I mean, we don't want those poor kids feeling bad about their parents. Yeah, that's probably a good thing. So I didn't know anything about it. Like I said, I didn't even know about Prop 8. I just was raising 6 kids and doing what I was told to do. And it wasn't part of what, Lila?
You were busy. You were really busy.
Yeah.
Which is what they love. That's what they do. They keep you busy. Yeah. And so I'm so pleased though, Lila, to hear you tell the story of your father doing apologizing. What?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I mean, the narcissism in the current leadership is just disgusting. It's awful. They can't even say they're sorry. They can't say they made a mistake. Can't do it. It was God this time, and it was God this time. God changed his mind. What can we do?
But you throw God under the bus.
Yeah,
exactly.
Throw God under the bus. I mean, God
every time.
It's just
they do though.
But
instead of taking ownership, they will throw God under the bus. I mean, that is how obvious is that they don't care. They don't care about God either. I mean, they'll just throw him under. It's pathetic. But you know, I mean, this is when the Prop 8 thing came out. I had a daughter living in California at the time, and she was given a date to be on the corner holding the signs. Yes, and she was torn up about it. She called me and said, "Mom, I don't want to do this. I did not write about this. This is like making me sick inside." And I said, "Don't do it. Don't go."
Yeah.
Mom, get it. There's so much pressure coming from.
It was hard. Yeah. The words were told what corner to be, what time. And then you were also told to donate. And we saw the money donations. We saw people that supposedly loved us, and the amount of money that they donated to the Prop 8. We could see the list, the amount of money that they donated to the campaign. Terry's own grandmother made phone calls for donations. I mean, it was insanely difficult. It was insanely difficult. And again, that was when Cassandra walked up and said, "Why are you doing this?" And that was the question, because the prophet, this is what the prophets have told. Prophet's
telling us to.
And I'm like,
who was the prophet? Was that Monson then?
Monson was the prophet, but Nelson was in control.
Yeah. Monson's
not quite there. Not there.
Yeah.
But I mean, then that's just like sheep, to slaughter. Yeah. I mean, can you not think for yourself whether this is right or wrong?
Yeah.
I
And they're
mean,
supposed to stay out of politics, right? They're not
right,
supposed to
right.
get
Right.
involved. And then to ask for money on top of it, like they don't
Mhm.
have enough already with
Yeah.
their billions.
Yeah, where that's a whole nother podcast as well. There's just so many things. The more you delve, it's amazing how that rabbit hole will lead you on different paths. Like I've really gotten into just the science of emotion.
Yeah.
And I just listened to a podcast yesterday, which I'm gonna totally download this book about. It's called Awe. What the emotion of awe is,
Mhm.
and how rituals. People, he mentioned how even just folk dancers, after dancing, doing a dance where they're all doing the same movement and they've got the music and it's all something that they love. After they're done dancing, they'll hug, they'll cry. There's so much
Yeah.
emotion because there's a shared feeling that goes on with music, how strong music can bring back a childhood memory, which creates
There's
emotion.
endorphins too.
Yes.
It's like a dump
Right.
of dopamine or something.
Yeah.
One of those.
So you
Oxy.
find that, I don't know if you guys have experienced this. Your kids go to, especially for youth, they come back, they're on this high, the music, the camaraderie, the rituals.
songs.
Yeah. And then a week and a half later, they're back to, sneaking out of the house and stealing your car. But for a while there,
I did do that, but okay.
just mentioning that for a friend. I don't know if I'm not saying I have any experience in that, but but they had that emotional experience, which they contributed to a feeling from the Holy Ghost,
Right.
or
Correct.
a confirmation,
'Cause that's what they're told it is.
That's what they told, but it's more of that group energy that, yeah. I mean, I was a performer in my life. I danced and I played the violin and also I backpacked with groups, and you could get that
What did you not do?
Yeah. You could get
amazing.
that backpacking or hiking to a sunrise hike with a group of people and watching the
Yes.
sunrise
Oh, yeah.
over a mountain. I mean, but dancing, performing an incredible performance will give you that same high with a whole group of people. And you've performed a number to you've just done your best. You go backstage and you just erupt in tears because
Yes.
you've done your best. Yeah.
Yes, it's the same feeling,
Same
the
thing.
exact same feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Well,
What did I not do?
girls,
Well, yeah, but that was a lot of years ago.
but that is amazing. And I'm so, Lila, thank you so much for
Yeah.
leading this discussion,
It
and
was
Jacki,
fun.
for
Thank
you being
you
so
for letting me-
vulnerable and sharing.
Yeah.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thanks for being
I-
honest.
Yes.
And
And one of the things, as
reminding
we
me.
bring more female voices into this medium, I really hope that we somehow touch someone to just be so happy with who they are, just be comfortable with who they are, and feel, that you have the strength. We're giving you permission today. Today, you are being given permission to be yourself and to be your true self, and to act on that, whatever that might be, to become visible and to
Yay.
stand up and take your own worth back. So thank you so much, ladies.
You're
It's been
welcome.
so
Thank you.
great. I don't
Yay.
know if there's going to be a part 3, but somehow I feel like somewhere along the line there's going to be. So you guys, I would say go out and enjoy the rest of your day. But Lila, I would suggest you start a fire and hunker down, evidently, from what you told me about your weather.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
sorry.
Jacki
I'm
has to
tired.
build
I'm
an
ready
arc.
for spring. Let's bring it.
Come
Yeah,
to
we need to build
Arizona.
an- Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
Yeah,
exactly. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
See you
you.
later.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Oh my gosh, we're so pleased that Jacki was able to come back and that we were able to do a part 3. I think it was really, really helpful to delve a little bit more into her personal life. And I can't tell Jacki enough how much we appreciate her vulnerability. I hope that somehow her story has helped you with your story, and that if you're struggling to be who you truly are and to not be confident, then I hope that Jacki's words hit you somewhere in your heart, in your mind, that you can also have the strength to stand up and just become visible. It's okay. And we love you. Please let us know if you'd like to share your story. We'd love to hear it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.